Hey guys, so I want to take a shot at answering one of the questions in the manifestation community that gets asked frequently. I've personally been asked this question, I don't know, dozens of times at this point. My friends Tim and Cecilia are also going to answer this question. I'll put the links to their videos below. And the question is, did I cause the tragic death of somebody close to me with my thoughts or my beliefs? Did I cause it, just expanded to any tragedy? Did I cause a tragedy that happened in my life, whatever that means, because of my thoughts and my beliefs? My short answer to that is no. If you did, you probably wouldn't be asking this question. If you had consistently envisioned something happening and kind of intended for it to happen just to get it over with, or to, if you had created it in the way that we discuss creating things in the manifestation community, you would know it and you wouldn't be asking that question. Most people who are asking that question are in the middle of intense grief. And if you watch a show like Long Island Medium, I just watched like 14 seasons of Long Island Medium. If you watch a show like that, you'll see that it's a very common response for people, even who had nothing to do with, weren't even there, or there's no rational way that they could blame themselves for somebody's death. They still do. I experienced this myself with my dad when he died. And if you're involved in any way, and even if you're not, there's this human response that happens where you look to yourself for how you could have prevented it, or how you could have been responsible. And I believe that the reason that we do that is that one of the ways that we try to get out of suffering when we're in the middle of grief is to come up with an idea of how maybe we can prevent that from happening again in the future. And the way that we go about that is by taking irrational responsibility for it, so that we, in a weird way, feel empowered. Well, I screwed this up this time, now I'm suffering the consequences, but in the future I can figure out how I created this or how I was responsible and act differently in the future, and thus prevent myself future pain. It's just something that we go through as humans. But it gets really sticky if you're into this manifestation stuff, especially if you're just kind of getting into it, or you don't really understand it, or you haven't had a lot of experience with it. That adds a new way to blame yourself for somebody's death or for something bad happening. That adds this idea, like, did an errant thought that I have, or a belief that I have, somehow then, without any intention or energy given to it on my part, did it then somehow just manifest in my reality? And the answer to that is no. And even if it were yes, even if the answer to your errant thought created this tragedy, even if the answer to that was yes, you couldn't pinpoint what thought it was. You don't know how it manifested. So even if it was true, it's effectively still the answer is no. We are all mental midgets at this point when it comes to, having control over our mental energy. We don't even understand how it works fully yet. It's not even explained scientifically at this point. This is all throwing shit against the wall, see what sticks. And we're all going based off of largely anecdotal evidence from other people. This is not something that we have control over at this point, in a way that responsibility for something like a tragedy happening in your life is something that you should feel, that you have, the answer is effectively no. The answer is, if you did, there was nothing that you could do about it. When I'm on this channel talking about nothing is real, I'm creating all of it and all that stuff, I'm saying that I sense that on a higher level that I don't have access to, me, and something that is still very much me, is creating everything, including all the tragedies. But I personally, at the human level, rationally, know that there's nothing I'm responsible for like that. Because if you don't know how to use something and you're still forced to use it, if something goes haywire and gets miscreated, you can't be blamed for that. You know what I mean? Are you doing your best in life? Like, that's really all you can ever expect from yourself. So when it comes to stuff like this, where, you know, did I create this? Did I create this with my beliefs? You know, so another answer that I've seen given to this is like, well, do you believe that bad things can happen to you? Do you believe in death? Do you, you know, in this earthly realm where bad things happen and death happens, of course you believe those things. So even if the belief did cause it, even if your belief in death or your belief that bad things happen did cause it, what are you going to do about that? I mean, you're not going to change your belief in death. You're not going to change your belief in bad things happen to people. So if that's the answer, if that belief is what caused it, well, what are you going to do? You can't really change that. I mean, are there people here walking around believing that death isn't actually happening? I mean, you could believe that death isn't real in some sense, because it's not in some sense. I mean, it's just a change in form. It's a change in energy. So from that, in that regard, death isn't real, but it happens. It happens in the way we're used to it happening. The person that we love changes form and we can't see them anymore. We can't interact with them in the same way anymore. To deny that that is the case, I have my doubts about any kind of beneficial effect that would have. I don't think all of a sudden everybody would cease to die if you somehow were even, if it's somehow even humanly possible to believe that death doesn't happen, like that bodies don't die, they do. That, you know. So all of the ways that people come up with to blame themselves from the manifestation standpoint for tragic things that happen, they're all just absurd. It's understandable, and in a lot of cases I think unavoidable. It's just a part of the human grief reaction to things. And the responses that people in the community give, you know, the people responding to comments are also operating from the same human level and the same level of fear. And I think one of the big hopes in this community when people get into it is that the eventual outcome is that you're such a master, or that you've figured it out to the degree that you manipulate the outside world so that nothing bad ever happens again. Bad. Nothing that you fear happening ever happens again. And I'm sorry, I know this is not what people want to hear. But I don't think that's the objective. I think the objective is to live your life in complete and total faith. And I think the objective is to eliminate fear completely, if you possibly can, and to navigate the things that happen in the seeming chaos of the world, of the external reality, to navigate that with zero fear, to essentially become bulletproof emotionally. And the less fear you have, the easier it is to intentionally create things in your life. I think that's sort of the end game, is the elimination of fear. Not manipulating the external so that nothing tragic ever happens, so that no one ever dies again. But the bottom line with this is, if you're in the middle of one of these things, something has just happened, you're in shock, you're in grief, you're naturally going to, if you're like a lot of other people, you're naturally going to look for ways to blame yourself, or you're just naturally going to feel like it's your fault in some way. And if you actually were involved in a way where you can really glom onto something that you did wrong, it's even worse. No, you did not intentionally create the bad thing that happened. No, effectively, there was nothing that you could have done differently mentally that would have prevented it, or you would have. And unfortunately, I don't think that in the future, no, there is a way that you can develop some belief system or something that completely eliminates these elements of humanity from your life. So I know that's why a lot of people get attracted to the manifestation community, and that's just how it, that's reflective of human beings. This is just, this is one of the hard parts of being human. And so, of course, everybody is looking for an idea that will relieve them of that aspect of life. And unfortunately, we all experience things, we all experience things that produce grief, and we all irrationally blame ourselves for it, or think there's something we could have done about it, or whatever. So whoever you are, whatever you're going through, I really hope that you're able to take some of that pressure, some of that weight off yourself by just knowing that it's something that everybody goes through. I mean, it's something, feeling responsible is something that everybody goes through. And just to take this one step further, when something tragic or bad or whatever, whenever there's a setback, this is really across the board. Whenever something in your life happens that is major and it's like an upheaval, you, in that moment, in that period of time, you have a huge choice that you can make. If you just kind of go with it, let the path of least resistance unfold, with no intention or anything on your part, you'll end up where you end up. But if you in the midst of that intense grief and pain, make a strong decision, and it's such a solid, clear state to be in. It's not one that anybody wants to ever feel, but it is a very clear thing to be in a huge state of grief. There is nothing else. There's nothing but that. You are in a very clear and intensely energetic period of time when you're feeling that. That's a time where you can make decisions. You can decide, this pain that I'm going through is not going to be for nothing. I'm going to use this to propel myself forward. I'm going to use this to become a deeper, better person. I'm not going to choose for this event to bring me lower. I'm going to choose for this event, I'm going to use this pain and decide that when I come out of this is going to have made me a stronger, better, less fearful person. You can decide that and then let that unfold. And the person that you lost, 100% of the time, no matter what your relationship was in this world, the person that you lost would want that. They would want that. That's what they would want you to do. They wouldn't want you to suffer and never be happy again. They would want you to take my tragic death and make something amazing out of it. Make something good from it. They would want you to be a better person because of it, not a worse person, including your child or anybody else you feel like you failed. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you feel responsible for it in reality. Maybe you did something that directly led to this thing happening. That person, still, they would want you to take that, flip it, and make something good out of it. That's what they would want. And so you have the choice to intend for that. And intentions that you make in the lowest places can be so powerful. Like, they can start a whole new direction in your life. You know, it's like when everything has kind of been wiped clean because you're in this, just the absolute bottom, really good stuff can come from that. And the thing that's happened has happened, and you can't go back. So you might as well make that choice. You might as well make the world a better place rather than a worse place, you know? So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. I hope that helps somebody, and I hope that if you're in this place that you can find some peace and know that good things await, and that this can be a good turning point in your life, believe it or not. It's definitely a turning point in some direction. That's it. That's it. What other choice do you have, really? Anyway, I hope that helps somebody. Have a great day.